Could Bill Belichick leave North Carolina before he even coaches a game?
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport and craziest sport on planet Earth. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Whether you win or lose, just visit FanDuel.com to get started. What to know about the upcoming semifinal games? That's on today's show. But first, Isaac Shade, Locked On Tar Heels. This is not some random corner of the internet black hole source reporting here, Isaac. Tom Pelissero, this is Big J journalism sort of stuff, as Colin Cowherd would say, reported that there could be a reunion in Las Vegas of sorts between Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. The Raiders fired Antonio Pierce. I mean, Isaac, who could have seen this coming, right? That this would even start circulating around the program a month into this coaching move.
Oh, I mean, the second that the loophole in the contract was brought up, right? Like, it was going to happen at some point. And by the way, this is a bad look for all the Brady is, or the Patriots are only about Brady, and clearly the Belichick of it doesn't matter, right? Like, clearly if he's wanting Belichick, there's something there to it. But yeah, this is a whole thing, Spencer, and it's pretty bonkers to see.
Yeah, and what doesn't surprise me the most, but just unsettles me the most, is how predictable this all was. Even if Belichick ends up sticking with North Carolina, being the head coach for a couple of years, I don't want this swirling around my program if I am a booster, if I am a fan, if I am a player. I don't want this going around because it makes people build up the idea in their head, this guy maybe does have one foot out the door. He's literally never coached, not a single time in college football until now. So the idea was kind of already Inception style planted in people's minds that he wants to go to the NFL and not be at North Carolina. When you then present a legitimate report along those lines, I mean, that doesn't look good for anybody.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, if you're a player, like a recruit's parent, if you are a booster, as you said, there's lots of people who this has to be really unsettling for. What's kind of befuddling to me a little bit is this comes out on Wednesday as it's the second day of contact, and he's been out on the road for 2 days all over the state of North Carolina after, everyone's like, well, Bill Belichick will never go visit high schools and never do any recruiting. So it's kind of this weird mashup of like, if I'm going to leave, then I'm just going to stay home in Chapel Hill and I'm not going to be out on the road recruiting. Like, that side of it makes zero sense to me. And like everyone coming at, like, if Bill Walton, I'm literally watching Arkansas basketball. They're in Bud Walton Arena right now. That's a funny thing.
R.I.P.
Yes, right?
Bill Walton, forever and always.
You, brother. If Bill Belichick has built this whole staff, it's wild to think, or not much of a staff yet, but has Lombardi with him as GM and his son is there. It would be odd to leave now. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but it's just so much weird things that have started happening already in Chapel Hill that it's going to be even crazier if he ends up leaving.
Here's the juicy part of all of it, Isaac. This report comes out now, and certainly I imagine the Raiders, as dysfunctional as they are, know they should hire a head coach before June. But let's say they don't, because they're horribly run and they're the Raiders. If they wait until, I forget the specific day in June, the buyout on Bill's contract with North Carolina goes from $10 million to $1 million. And on the flip side, that's just not the craziest buyout in the world. I mean, Texas A&M is paying Jimbo Fisher $7.5 million this past year and next year to not coach for them. If you actually want the best coach in the history of the NFL, or at least the most successful one, yeah, I bet you'd be willing to pony up $10 million.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is actually right on June 1 is the day of that dropping down from 10 to 1.
There you go.
And so like that's what's crazy is I think it's like most people or so many people are thinking, oh man, that drops down to not a bad buyout at 1 million. I'm with you. I think the 10 million is not that crazy of a buyout for who Bill Belichick is and all the money that goes around these days in college football. And so that side of it, but I love your point, Spencer. And it's something I've talked a lot about today with people is like, it's almost like malfeasance to have to wait until June to do it. And so it's like, from a competitive standpoint for the Raiders, how on earth are you going to put a roster together and then be able to bring Coach Belichick in and do that? Like that doesn't seem to line up and make any sense at all. But the Raiders are an unserious franchise, so what would it matter anyway? And let's just keep throwing the ball to Brock Bowers, who was wonderful on my fantasy team. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it turns out that guy's pretty talented, and Georgia very much struggled replacing him this year. But here's another angle that just popped into my head. The Raiders go and find their own version of Gerard Mayo, Chip Kelly, Lovie Smith, all these coaches who have been hired for one season just to get fired. I mean, could that be in play? Could this just be a groundwork move where Bill coaches in 25 to remind everyone, yeah, I can still win football games and, get his feet wet again coaching football, any kind of football. And then the buyout has dropped, and then they have a one-year coach who they have every intention of just firing, and then they hire him in 2026. I mean, is that a crazy theory?
It's not. In fact, that was going to be my very next point. I could see a world in which the Raiders basically hire an interim without calling it that for a year, or it's almost like a lame duck without actually being a lame duck of that kind of scenario of you just keep the bed warm and we'll bring in our guy after a year in Chapel Hill and see what happens there. And so I think that is a much more logical way to go about it than hiring him June 2nd, 2025, right? Like that just wouldn't make any sort of sense other than, maybe you just do that and tank and get the number 1 draft pick going into 2026. And then that's a different world. But yes, what you just laid out makes a lot more sense to me.
I don't know who that would be. I mean, Antonio Pierce was such a train wreck.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just just keep him? Right. But I don't know. Maybe you don't want to take the chance that he could succeed next year. I don't know. It's just all strange. This was a strange hire from the get-go. It's still strange. We haven't even seen a full few months of Bill Belichick on the job, but
if the Raiders do that, could we call it a Ted Lasso hire? Like how she hired him hoping he would fail?
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah.
That's exactly what it would be. There's no better way to end a segment than with a Ted Lasso reference. I'm always here for it. Isaac Shade, Locked on Tar Heels, great as always. Is Penn State going to be great enough to beat Notre Dame? I don't think so, but I've got somebody who does. See, Isaac's with me because he's smart. But he is smart, I should say. He smarts. Yeah, that's
he does good thinking stuff.
Yeah, he does the thinking all of the time, but other people do as well, and they've landed on Penn State. We'll tell you why next. First, a reminder, this episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money can help you find subscriptions that you're paying for twice. How foolish would you feel? Well, no need to worry. Rocket Money has got you covered. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place. I don't love that for realignment. I do love it for Rocket Money, because whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year, Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when you use all the app's premium features. What would you do with $740? I don't know. You tell me. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's the place to go. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. How does Penn State play for a national championship game? Zach Seyko of Locked On Nittany Lions is here to discuss. You told me before we hopped on here, Zach, that playing with a lead is the biggest way Penn State gains an advantage. Why?
I mean, absolutely, because the statistics back it up that Notre Dame is just not a passing team. Riley Leonard is okay at best when it comes to being a passer, but then he also doesn't have the best weapons to throw to. And I know that's kind of me throwing stones in a glass house because Trey Wallace and Mari Evans could be better. Now there is Tyler Warren, right? They don't have a Heisman contender as a pass catcher in that offense. Jeremiah Love's a little banged up. He's going to play, but he's not going to be 100%. And something I don't know that people have talked about enough, Cooper Flanagan, who's the second tight end in this offense, is an able and willing blocker. So he is a key component to the ground game. So the ground game just takes a step back in a semifinal game against one of the best teams, the best team that they've faced to this point. Penn State's better than Georgia. This is the best team that Notre Dame has faced. And now Jeremiah Love is not 100%. You don't have one of your additional blockers that you go with that goes with your bread and butter part of the game plan on offense. Howard Cross, best defensive lineman, is a little banged up. And then Riley Mills was lost for the season against Indiana, who's their best pass rusher. So if Penn State can force Notre Dame into obvious passing situations, somewhat get them to play from behind the sticks, and just get that defense out there on the field, because Notre Dame's defense has been great to help set its offense up for success. But what if the offense can't just do its job accordingly, and then the defense has to be out there for longer drives? Penn State gets more opportunities to get into rhythm. So that's where it starts. And then just be balanced, be creative on both offense and defense for Penn State. Offense can't be vanilla. Defense certainly can't be. It looks like Abdul Carter continues to trend in the right direction. He is going to play. You got to create a specific game plan for just him. I would put him on permanent QB spy for Riley Leonard. If you can put him as a permanent QB spy for Riley Leonard,
You would take him out of pass rush situations or the ability to blitz him from different spots?
Well, that's what he would be doing. He's already done that this season. He's done that as a sophomore and as a freshman. He would basically be going back to his original role as just being this freelance off-ball linebacker, but you can move him all around the formation. I just don't know, with that upper body injury, we don't know if it's a shoulder, we don't know what extent it is, but getting contacted every single play by a 320-pound offensive lineman probably isn't good for the longevity of that game. So just do something that's a little different. Create a newness where it's, okay, instead of special pass rushing situations, how about you do it the entire game where Riley Leonard, you take away his legs, okay, then what?
So this Notre Dame offense, I've described it as non-one-dimensional in that I agree, don't throw the ball well, but the way that they run the ball doesn't always look the same. They'll give you different looks. They'll use some motion and be creative. They will run Riley Leonard a lot. I think with Jadarian Price leading the way in that backfield, potentially if Jeremiah Love isn't able to go, I think you see a lot of Riley Leonard running the football in this game, maybe as much as you have seen all year. That's a guy who I think in this spot is going to be willing to put his body on the line, in harm's way, do whatever it takes to win the football game. But what's your confidence level that Penn State can take that away to build an early lead?
Well, there we go. That's where Abdul Carter comes into play. Riley Leonard is going to see an increase in workload. He is your second best. He's RB2 in this Notre Dame offense.
Yeah, literally, statistically,
yes.
By the way, he is their second leading rusher.
So, and I'd say he is the second most trustworthy rusher, slightly ahead of Price, slightly ahead. But in this offense, with the way that it works, the balance is Jeremiah Love, and then your second go-to option is Riley Leonard. So if Penn State can find, I think the way that Penn State swarmed Ashton Genty, do that for Riley Leonard. Swarm him. Make him get rid of the football. Make him, I know he's not going to be scared to keep the football, but make him second guess himself. Abdul Carter charging in off the edge unblocked, and you gave it off too late, and then he's still able to legally tackle you because he didn't know that you weren't going to be the ball carrier on that play. Just kind of you can set the tone early, but he becomes that key factor in the ground game. I respect Jadarian Price. I think he's a capable running back. He's somebody that if he does break off those big plays, then maybe you adjust a little bit. But I think, like Penn State swarmed to Ashton Genty, swarmed to Riley Leonard.
Why do you think Notre Dame is favored in this game? It opened around 1.5. It's moved up to 2.5.
Oh, there's a lot of factors here. I mean, Notre Dame is it's 1.5 points. If this was 4 or 5, I'd be a little more skeptical here. It is a pick 'em in my mind. I did say that Penn State should be that 1.5, 2-point favorite in this game. And I think
it is back down to 1.5. You're right.
Yeah. So I think Penn State wins, right? This is a coin flip. Why Notre Dame? A variety of factors. We also need to think of this from the mind of Vegas, the betting, the odds makers, that they want to be able to generate 50% of the betting, and they know that they can move lines that aren't necessarily in reality, if you will. They might be more so perception. So I don't think that Notre Dame is necessarily the valuable play. I think there's some extra points there that, Vegas is kind of getting a bonus on the back end for itself.
I have Notre Dame winning this game 21-17. I don't think that this gets to be a shootout. If it does, I take Drew Aller over Riley Leonard unless Notre Dame is just absolutely gashing the Penn State defense. But you mentioned that Notre Dame is banged up, and yet I watched their defensive line against Georgia create or really start the biggest snowball sequence of the game at the end of the first half. It's 6-3. It's 13-3. Then a special teams return to begin the second half. Boom, it's 20-3. That's what this Notre Dame has been. They have been timely, situationally. They have been very good. Marcus Freeman, I think, has been clever in certain areas, like running 11 guys on and 11 guys off. Kirby Smart says you can't do that, but guess what? They were able to do it right then and there. So that's kind of the reason that I trust Notre Dame. Is I do still like their defense a lot against this Penn State offense. I think that Nittany Lions offensive line has to play the way it did against Oregon in the Big Ten title game.
They need to do a better job than they did against Boise State, let's say that. And what Oregon likes to do defensively with Al Golden, who's a former Penn State.
Notre Dame,
right.
Yes.
Notre Dame likes to do a lot of shifts, stunts, twists. And with Al Golden as that defensive coordinator, he just basically causes so much confusion. If they really get that's why I say Penn State can't be vanilla. They're going to have to do different cadences. They're going to have to do different motions to kind of counteract and say, okay, if you're going to try to time up our plays, then we're just going to shift things differently to kind of match what you were doing. Al Golden is a former Penn State guy. I mean, this game's going to be personal for him. I don't expect anything but his best in this game. Notre Dame, since Boise State had that success in blitz situations with the way that they were able to run their stunts, Notre Dame can certainly have that kind of success. I imagine that's not a skill issue. That's a communication issue. So that's going to be the focal point of Penn State practice this week. If you struggled with it against Boise State, you're going to make that the emphasis this week going up against a Notre Dame team that does the same thing, but better.
After getting off to a hot start, your top key to Penn State winning the game and your score prediction.
The top key goes back to what Penn State, keep a balanced attack, get Riley Leonard off kilter. It's simple. It's easier said than done because Notre Dame has a top 5 defense objectively. That's why I can't say, just go score a bunch of points, run all these different plays, and you'll score 30, 40 different. No. You're going to get into a rock fight. Every possession is going to matter, and it is the semifinal. This isn't a game where it's not as inconsequential in the regular season where you can overcome one loss like both teams did. And in this game now, it doesn't matter if it's 3-0 or if it's 45-42, but if it is a 3-0 type of game, that is a win. So I'm saying that you're going to get the fact
3-0, man. When was the last time a game even finished with that score?
Something in the NFL, right? Bad weather. I don't know. Not in college.
I'm just thinking of like Iowa. Iowa's got to be involved in it, right? They have to be.
Yeah, I mean there was 6-4 in 2002 against Penn State. Iowa did win that game, but that's what we're talking about. 2002. 6-4. How the times have changed. But you're going to get a top 5 defense objectively in Notre Dame going against a top 10 defense in Penn State objectively. But this is just a different team that Notre Dame has not faced a balanced, capable type of team that plays complementary football. This is the best quarterback that they've faced. This is the best running back tandem that they've faced. Oh, but Georgia, SEC champion, that is not the same Georgia team. Gunnar Stockton was not ready for that game. They got them out.
I don't know if Gunnar Stockton was a problem.
But they got out of their game plan. That was not a Georgia team that was going to win by, passing and playing from behind in this air raid type of offense. They needed to play in a 1-score game, and Notre Dame had built a lead with bad coaching by Kirby Smart at the end of the first half, and then a key kick return. Those are outlier plays that you're not always going to get every single time. But if you do get them in this game, Penn State's not out of it. Penn State can come back. They can play from behind. They can play in a shootout. They can play in a rock fight. That's why I like Penn State here, 24-20. They can just win in a variety of ways. Notre Dame is just a really good version of a team that wills its way to victory with its blueprint. If you get them out of their blueprint, I'd like to see how they adjust, because I think Penn State can do that. They have not faced a team like Penn State this season.
Zach Seyko, Locked On Nittany Lions. Great stuff as always. If they win, I think they're facing Ohio State. Can the Buckeyes be stopped? We're going to answer that question next. Can Texas actually beat Ohio State? I mean, sure. I've seen far crazier things happen. Remember, a team that could be playing, that I predict to play in the national championship game, lost to Northern Illinois. So nothing in college football makes sense. That's Jay Stevens, Locked On Buckeyes. What does make sense, Jay, is the way Ohio State has played the last 2 games. It's what people expected before the year. Best roster in college football. They've put a lot of money into it. You've got a veteran coaching staff. Kind of looks that way. Can Texas slow down Ohio State reasonably, or are they just going to have to go blow for blow with them?
Kind of got to go blow for blow. I don't think they can actually reasonably slow down Ohio State or contain Ohio State. Because I was thinking about this earlier. We got on the show together. You have to give so much attention to Jeremiah Smith. It opens up so many other avenues for Will Howard to just efficiently run Ohio State's offense. On defense, there's really no weakness. The one liability people thought Ohio State's defense had at one point was linebackers, which is now a massive strength for Ohio State. So I don't really know what Texas can do to slow down or even try to contain anything Ohio State's going to do in the Cotton Bowl.
I look at this Ohio State offense and I say there's a lot of different ways that they can attack somebody. By the way, I thought we'd see this going into the Rose Bowl. Turns out it wasn't needed. Maybe Chip Kelly still has it in his back pocket. The quarterback run with Will Howard is going to show up. It might not be a Riley Leonard sort of game or Haynes King at Georgia Tech where he carries the ball 10 to 20 times. But there is going to be a third down and short, a fourth and short, something in this game where you see something that isn't just a quarterback sneak with Will Howard. Just watch for that. Just watch for that. But this receiving core, Jay, Ohio State has had a lot of great ones. This one feels like it's up there for me. I don't think I would have said that earlier in the year, but Jeremiah Smith has really progressed from the start of the season to what he is now, which is the best receiver in that room. So if you were Texas, put yourself in the shoes of the Texas defense coordinator. What's your game plan here?
Pass interference, hold everybody, try to do things to where Ohio State may get free yards, but you're keeping them out of the end zone. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm being honest because I don't really think there really is an option. Excuse me. The only option really is to infiltrate the interior of the Ohio State's offensive line. That's it. Earlier I was trying to be sarcastic with the flags and stuff, but no, like the only real weakness is the interior. Guard, center, guard. Playing 3 guards, that rotation has been very, very well in the playoff. Center Carson Hinsman has been phenomenal replacing Seth McLaughlin, the Remington Award winner. But that's really the only weakness. If Texas is able to get pressure in the middle, that is the only way to slow down the Buckeyes offense. The other issue with that is the up-tempo offense, and Will Howard getting the ball up very, very quickly, is to overcome the weakness on the offensive line. So they've already altered the offense to overcome a potential obstacle on the offensive line, and it's working out to perfection. So, yes, the holdings and the pass interference calls, those things are ways to slow down Ohio State's offense. But the true only way to actually get Ohio State's offense out of rhythm is to get pressure on the interior of the O-line. But nobody's been – Tennessee, Oregon, really good defensive lines. They couldn't do it.
Great defensive lines, both of them. I perhaps infamously at this point, and anybody else who did it probably feels this way as well. I picked Ohio State to lose at home to Tennessee because I thought, that Tennessee defensive front against that Ohio State front four, I thought there'd be a Michigan hangover in the locker room. Instead, they've turned it around. They're playing with the right mentality, the right sort of edge. But it's that offensive line, Jay, that I look at and say, boy, I didn't think they would click that quickly. Buckeyes offensive line coach deserves a lot of credit.
He does. He definitely does. Justin Fry's been under a lot of scrutiny for the way the offensive line has played this year. But when you look in the true context of everything, there's a left tackle going down to the Oregon game. The backup left tackle came in. He is also out for the year. You move your guard to left tackle. You re-engineer some things on the interior. All of a sudden, I think it was the week of the Michigan game, Seth McLaughlin goes down with an Achilles injury on a Tuesday. Game's on a Saturday. The moment that unit was able to get practice time together and there wasn't a Wednesday practice where you're working together for the first time, all of a sudden a game on a Sunday or a Saturday, where you're getting week after week after week. They're able to build chemistry. They're able to work through some of the kinks they couldn't normally work through in a season. We're seeing this offensive line, as unconventional as the rotating guard situation is, it's working out to perfection right now. And Justin Fry has done a phenomenal job with development and coaching these guys up and getting them prepared for every single game.
The other part of Ohio State that goes overlooked because of how explosive the offensive weapons are, how good Will Howard has been, or how well Will Howard has been playing over the last couple of games. This Buckeyes defense looks like it's playing its best football of the year. And remember, for all the mess that was the Michigan game, wasn't on the defense. That was 13 points they gave up. That's usually enough. And there have only been 3 instances this year, Jay, in which a team has scored over 17 points on the Buckeyes, and one of those teams was Oregon twice, and we know how that second game looked and how they played in that first half, holding them scoreless until literally the last play of the first half. So when I look at this Buckeyes defense, this is the reason that I am so confident in Ohio State winning and covering this game. I've got them beating Texas 30-13. I don't think this one is as competitive as Notre Dame and Penn State is going to be. And it's because I have been saying this on the show about Texas's offense for quite a while. They don't play 4 quarters of football. Maybe it's a second half. It's usually a first half. Look at what they did against Arizona State. That has been their game all year long, really the last couple years under Sark. They've got great game plans. They hit a couple explosives. They scheme up some great plays, and then they go dormant. They go dormant for a little while and then save it at the end. And when you're playing Kentucky, that's not a problem. Or when you were playing Arkansas, it's not a huge deal. But Arizona State was good enough to just about make them pay the price for that. Ohio State, plenty good enough to do more than just hand them a loss.
Oh, plenty good enough, man. This defense is insane. And the fact that
they're fast. They look like a blend of speed and strength at every position.
This is what we have been talking about on Locked on Buckeyes for the past few years, because one of the biggest knocks on Ohio State's defense is that there's defenses in the South that look faster, the players look stronger, the players look smarter. Then all of a sudden this year, it seems like everything is coming together at the right time. Tennessee and Oregon twice. Those are the only times that Ohio State has allowed an opponent to score over 17 points. Yes, there have been times where there's been a hiccup here or a hiccup there in a game, but nobody's been able to get any form of a consistent offense against Ohio State. And I think for Texas, with their inconsistencies, and even if you look at just some of the rushing numbers, as I was doing earlier today, they're not good.
No,
yes, Texas wants to run the ball. They only had 53 rushing yards against Arizona State. They had 31 rushing yards against Georgia in the SEC championship. The first time they played Georgia, they had 29 rushing yards. Those are the big games. In the big games, what you're known for is supposed to show up in a big way, and it didn't do it. So, yes, Arizona State only gave up, 53 rushing yards to Texas? Ohio State's defense is better in every way.
And Ohio State's defense just played a game against Oregon that has been a good rushing team. Not a great one, but a good rushing team all year. Minus 23. Now, that's sack yardage included, so that's going to distort it. Up to 20 yards by running backs or pitch plays to receivers. The Buckeyes were just there all over the place. So I've got this game comfortably to Ohio State, 30-13. Your score prediction, good sir.
31, Ohio State. Texas is going to only score 14. Some people may say, Jay, why do you think Texas is going to score 14 when Tennessee scored, 20 or 21? Texas's inconsistencies and Ohio State's just straight dominance on defense. Like, with Quinn Ewers, he's a good guy. He has good arm talent. But he's going to make a lot of messed up plays on Friday. I almost said Saturday. On Friday night, because there's no holes in pass coverage. Nothing. short, intermediate, deep. There's no holes. The Buckeyes were able to get pressure with 3 and sometimes 4. Now, it may take a little bit of time for them to get there, but that's because Quinn Ewers is going to have to wait 3, 4, 5 seconds to get the ball off, but nobody's open. Next thing you know, Tyleik Williams or Twimaloa or Sawyer are putting him down on the ground. I have no problem thinking about Will Howard in this way and how as efficient as he has been, and I expect him to be efficient once again. And I kind of think this might be TreVeyon Henderson's best game of the season statistically, because I just feel like in this day, the last year Ohio State played in the Cotton Bowl, it was the worst performance, worst game plan we had ever seen in a Ryan Day era until Michigan this year. And I do think TreVeyon Henderson, who couldn't play in that game in the Cotton Bowl last year, wants revenge and wants to just show everybody, I am the guy. I can get the job done.
Jay Stevens with what I am dubbing the Price is Right score prediction after hearing mine. 30-13. He goes 31-14. $1, Bob.
$1.
$1. $1 right there. That'll do it for us today. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.